Hey, my name's Mick Hall. Welcome to my hobby channel. Okay, today we're going to start the build on a mini quad. This is a 210 size. Frame was bought from eBay, £10, so not very expensive. So we're going to go through a list of components that we're going to need, or that we're going to use. So this is the frame I bought from eBay. Quite a nice little frame, all in one. Carbon fibre, pretty sharp on the edges. We're going to file those off before I make a start, because otherwise these are going to be cutting through wires, or on this top plate here. Again, this where it goes, where your battery straps will come through. It'll slice through those in, not so long. So, like I say, we'll file all those, take all the really sharp edges off. But it's quite a nice little frame for £10. A company called Global Mart on eBay. This is the bits you get with it. So, 2 or 3 bits there for around the front end for where your camera's going to sit. Plenty of screws there for screwing the frame together, and standoffs, and also spacers, frame spacers as well. So that is our frame parts that we're going to use. Motor covers I'm going to use are these. These were bought from AliExpress and they come in packs of 4. But you have to buy 4 black ones and 4 green ones and that, or I bought 2 packs so I could split them up. I like to put these on the front for orientation wise, once I get a bit better and I start using my FPV, then I'll leave them on there, but they won't be needed obviously. So these will be fitted here, such as that. These come from, as I say, AliExpress, and these are made by King Kong. Actually stamped into the back of there, King Kong. Don't know if you can see that. And they was just £1.37 for 4. Okay, so that's there. Also, what I'm going to fit as well, these soft mounts. Now you can buy these from eBay as well. A company called Cuffers of London. These worked out at £2.50 for 5, I think it was. But these ones I printed off myself on the 3D printer with TPU filament, which is nice and flexible, as you can see. And we're going to put those into there to hopefully isolate vibration through to the flight controller and anywhere else. Now, the first time I fitted these, I fitted them on my the quadcopter I built before this one, and I didn't have the engine protectors or the engine mounts. I had my motors mounted directly on the carbon fibre. I was getting a lot of interference through the FPV, so I installed an LC filter on the electronic side, which cleared a lot of the interference up. But what really cleared it right up to get rid of everything was mounting these between the carbon fibre and the motors, and that cleared it right up for me. So that isolated the motor from the frame, and it was very good after that. So we're going to be mounting our motors onto those. So those into, like so, we fitted into there. So our motors came from AliExpress also. These are Readytosky. By all means, not an expensive motor. These were $33 for 6. So hopefully I'll get 4 good ones out of these 6. So obviously these are going to be mounted in each corner there. They come with some clockwise, some counterclockwise. The only difference is the threads on these. Obviously the difference the way this will spin will be the way we wire them up, whether they spin clockwise or anti-clockwise. So again, they will be mounted into there. Then we have our power distribution board. This is a good old Matek, come from China. It's been the Matek name has been felt tipped over to cover it out, but it's quite easy to see there. But these are nice little controller boards with our spacers into there. We'll mount this on here. Comes with the XT60 socket as well to mount into that, and that's a nice neat little setup there. Then we've got our receiver. Our receiver is going to be a FrSky receiver. I think this is the smallest one they do. This is an R-XSR. This was £18 from Banggood. Comes with the antennas already fixed onto it. You can see these are held on with some hot glue or some type of adhesive there to stop them coming off. And these are replaceable, so if these get broken or ripped off at all, you can buy new antennas to fit onto there. And that will be just held on with probably a piece of hot glue when I decide where it's going to be, where we're going to mount it. So that is the receiver, like I say, from FrSky. Flight controller is a Flip32 F3 all-in-one. This came from Hobby King. This was £25, and again this will be mounted on top of here. You can see the arrow on here to make sure you orient it towards the front of the quadcopter. Make sure it's the right way around. And again, with our spacers into there, I might fit rubber isolation spacers between those two, try and isolate again vibration and get into the flight controller at all. So that will be mounted nicely into there, and as you can see, it comes with a USB port, so we can connect it into your PC to whichever software you use, you know, Beta Flight or can't remember the name of the other one. So that's our flight controller. Like I say, that was £25 from Hobby King, so that's going to be mounted into there. And then, last but not least, we have our flight control, our electronic speed controllers. These are RacerStar, cheap ones again, £35 for all four, and they was also from Banggood. 25 amp. These I'll be fitting and probably fixing onto the arms with possibly a zip tie or insulation tape, or even self-amalgamating tape, which I've used in the past, which is nice and soft, easy to work with. So these will be soldered onto the motor wires into that position there, and then obviously soldered onto our power distribution board. So I'm going to do that bit of soldering. I'm going to cut some wires, solder these onto these, fix these motors onto the arms, and then I will be back to fix the power distribution board and show you how I'm going to wire that up and try and hopefully keep the wires all nice and neat. And we'll go on to the next stage from there. So I will speak to you soon. Thanks for watching. Okay, this is where we are now. So motors fixed. As I said, we've got 2 clockwise, 2 anti-clockwise. As you can see by the wiring on the clockwise motors, you've got the wiring just straight to the connectors. On the 2 opposite ones, on the other 2, which are these anti-clockwise motors, I keep the centre one to the centre one and then cross the 2 outside. And again, the same with this one, centre one to centre, 2 outside, one's crossed over. I don't think it matters. I think you can cross any of the wires and that, and it'll reverse the motors, but that's the way I like to do it. So that's where we are with that now. So what we're going to do now, we're going to fit the PDB onto the frame. I'm going to fit these spacers as well to make sure that my wiring doesn't get in the way, or the spacers don't get in the way of the wiring, whichever. So we're going to fit these 6 spacers. The other 4 there are just the landing legs. So we've got 6 of those. We've got, I might as well tip the lot out, I think. So we want those out of the way. There's our standoffs. We're obviously going to need some screws, so we'll tip a few screws out as well. And then we'll mount this on here. And then what I'm going to do is then cut these main wires, these power wires down to go onto here. As you can see, I've already tinned the areas where I'm going to be connecting to, so positive, negative on each corner for each of the ESCs. So that's where we're going to connect. So what we do, we just move those out of the way a little bit that way, those over that way, and we will connect onto here. So let's have some of these. They should screw into those. Yep. Okay. So we fit 4 of these to the base. So this is all pretty straightforward, and it's pretty basic with most quadcopters you're going to build. It's just nice, I just think myself, it's just nice to do it in a particular routine so you know exactly where you are. If you need to put it down for a few days, you're going to be able to come back to it and pick it up nice and easy. We don't want a nut on there, do we? We want a spacer. Stand off. So, that's our 4 standoffs. This is where we're going to mount our PDB to. And what I'm going to do, I think I've got these rubber standoffs here, which I want the flight controller to go onto. So these ones are, let's say, same threads, just that they're mounted, you know, on a piece of rubber. So if we go onto the top of those, that will then hopefully, no, it's not going to, got to go with the nuts first, I think. Don't think those, yeah, not that deep. Okay, so we'll go with our nuts onto these, hold this in place, and then what I'll do is I'll strip the wires, or cut the wires, strip them down, and solder those onto each corner. So I'll tweak those down in a minute. So you can see where we are now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to now go with each of these, leave these the full length for the moment, although I'll probably be cutting these back down just too much wire. And then we're going to go on to negative to negative, positive to positive into there. I'll probably pull these back a little bit, just to give me a little bit of extra wire there, and just makes it a little bit easier to work with these. So I'm going to go there to there, cut those, solder those, and the same with each of these as well. So, and again, just push that back a little bit so we can fit that onto there. And again, we do the same there. We'll go negative to negative, positive to positive, and work my way around the board, and that will be that area, that little part done. So you can see where we are now. And then once we've done that, We then look at getting power up to our flight controller. Flight controller can fit on top of this. Like I say, that will go on top. Once I've tightened those down, I will go on top of there with these onto there. Flight controller on top of that. Check, make sure we're not going to be problems with space, which I don't think we will be. Let me just put a couple of these on, get an idea of the height we've got and the space we've got between the flight controller and the top of the top plate. So we put 4 of these on. Go on there, nice. Yep. And then we've got 4 here, 1, 2, 3 and 4 around where the camera's going to sit. So to there. Like, so I don't think any of these are going to be in the way of our wiring, or the other way around. The wiring's not going to be in the way. That can fit through there nicely. Or depending on how neat it looks and that, I might go around the other side of that and come in there. I'll just see how we are and then come back to you with the result. All these components all seem pretty good. I think with something like this that is so cheap, I think probably spares from other quadcopters would fit, and Hobby King and that, you'd get spacers and nuts and screws and whatever you needed whenever you needed it. So that's our spacers. Now this is going to be obviously our top plate, which will go onto there, and let's put just put a couple of screws in. Let's go. Get an idea of space we've got, and I think we've got loads of space, so it's not going to be an issue. So you can see there, that's into there. You can see the spacer that I've got in there, and like I say, my flight controller will go on top of that. So it's going to leave us plenty of space there. Obviously I don't want to run wires up through these holes because that's where the battery is going to lay. So all the wiring's got to stay below that top plate, but that won't be a problem. I'm not going to be using, can't think what they call them there. I'm going to be soldering straight to the flight controller. I'm not going to be fitting any connections or anything like that, you know, where you push the pins in. It'll just be soldering directly to it, and again that saves height, and I think you can a lot of times you can make a neater job that way as well, and route the wires exactly where you want them. Okay, so that's where we are now. So I'm just going to do a little bit more soldering with these ESC wires, and then I'll come back and we'll look at putting the flight controller in place, and then we can see where we're going to bring the power up and what other power we're going to need, where we're going to take these wires from our electronic speed controllers onto the flight controller as well. Okay, so that's it for the moment. I'll speak to you shortly. Bye bye. Okay, so let's cover this wiring that we've done now. You'll notice there have been some changes. I've changed my PDB around. I've changed the way the flight controller is sitting on there as well, and I've also changed my motors around as well because I had these in the wrong positions. I had the two silver nuts here and the two black nuts there. I think I was probably concentrating more on doing the video than I was on actually assembling it. But they're all correct now. So hopefully, like you haven't set it up how I had it in the other video, or in the other part of the video. So let's cover what we've got here. You can see now I've got this flight controller orientated to the left, and the reason I've done that is because if I had it in the correct direction, either these pins with this power socket here on this side, these pins, once I put those headers on, will hit on the side of there, so you couldn't get anything onto that. Or the way it is now, you turn it around this way and have it orientated correctly, you can't get to the USB port. So I've had to orientate it this way. I've gone with the main power in that's coming up from the PDB towards the front, because hopefully that won't have to be removed anytime soon. But it gives me access to the USB socket through the back here, which you know, for diagnostics or anything, you're going to need to be able to get to that. So that's how that is now. So underneath here, hopefully you're going to be able to see this. So let's just hold that up into here. So I've got my earth wires from my electronic speed controllers all going to a single earth point, which is the the top one in the corner here, which is this one here. That's another earth there from the PDB as well as this black one here, which is the earth from the ESCs. The signal wires from the ESCs are all coming up to the next 4 along, which is 1, 2, 3 and 4 there. I'll show you on the wiring diagram in a minute. So those are the first 4 going down the board there. That's the ESCs. As I said, my main power coming up from the PDB is this one here, so that's LiPo power. And then these 3 here from the FrSky receiver are coming up to our 3 connections on the corner here, which is earth power and signal for S-bus connection there. Okay, so let's put that down for a minute, and that's how that's going to stay now. So now just cover something which threw me when I first wired this receiver up, and that was the plug was wired with earth, the power, and then the next one along, which was actually for a smart port. And I've wired this end obviously up for S-bus. Now I didn't notice that, and when I come to binding was okay, which was fine, but it was not, the signal was then not going through from my receiver to my flight controller. And because I used the plug as it was supplied, I didn't notice that to start off with, and I had to move that one connection along one port, or along one pin, to the next pin, the signal pin, had to go along one to give me the S-bus connection and not the smart port. You can see it on their diagram here. On here you can see here, you've got your 3 connections side by side, and you've got ground, 5 volt and S port. That is how that plug is wired up. So I'll just remove the one pin, moved it along one, and that then gave me my S-bus connection, and my connection to my flight controller was okay after that. Okay, so we're now going to go on to onto CleanFlight, and I'll show you how I've got it configured in CleanFlight. Okay, I just want to quickly show you the connection diagram on how I've got my Flip32 wired up. This is a Flip32 F3 all-in-one light. So on the left hand side there you can see you've got your voltage coming up from your LiPo. So I think 3 or 4S, I think I'm using a 3S at the moment. That brings the power up to the flight controller from your PDB. Down the bottom there you've got your S-bus connections, your S-bus, your 5V and your ground. Where it's showing the red circle on the other diagram, that's just where the diagram's flipped over, showing you the front and back, or top and bottom, whichever way you want to look at it. Same connections there. Now at the top on the right you've got your ESC signal wires going to those first 4 pins, 1, 2, 3 and 4, excuse me. And then you've got your 5V coming up from your PDB. Now you've got grounds. I've got my grounds from my ESC all going to the 1 and the PDB all going to that 1 ground. I think it's important to keep your ESC grounds all to the 1, but you could take your PDB ground over to, you can see one on the corner down below. You take the ground to there. There's probably a couple of other grounds you could go to as well. But any ground will do, I think, for your PDB. So that is that. What we're going to do now, we're going to go to Clean Flight. Let's just sort that. And okay, so now on Clean Flight you need to connect up your flight controller to your PC with the USB cable. Connect up here, which will bring you inside Clean Flight, and then go to CLI and then just type in the bottom here version, and here you will see the version of firmware that's installed on your flight controller at the moment. This is what you need, yeah, SP Racing F3. Don't think this might not be the latest version, but it's pretty much the almost the latest. So what you then need to do, you then need to disconnect and to flash your flight controller with the latest firmware. So as I say, choose SP Racing F3 at the top here, one underneath. If you drop that down and take the latest version there, latest stable version, that's there. These, you need to have these selected here, and then select Flash on Connect. This was the only way I found I could flash my flight controller, this Flip32, and all you need to do then is actually disconnect your flight controller from the USB port, from the USB cable. The reboot pins are right next to the USB ports, so you need to then short those pins and then plug in the USB, and as you plug in the USB that will automatically start to download the firmware, and you'll see it going across in the progress bar in the bottom here where it says please load firmware file. That will go across and complete, and then you will have the SP Racing F3 firmware installed on your flight controller. Then we need to connect again, and once we're in there you need your quad sat on a nice flat surface and stationary, and just click on calibrate accelerometer, which we will do. That will then level up this picture here. Now from there we can then go to ports, and this is how I've got mine set. I've got UART 1 and 2. 1 I believe is being used, 3 is needed for your receiver connection. So definitely have 3. Don't take out UART 1. I had took that out one time, caused me problems. So leave that in. You don't need this at the moment, but you can leave that in there, and then click on Save and Reboot. If you then come down to configuration, you can, my ESCs are D-Shot 1200, so I chose that. Further down here, now just here where we've got the yaw at 270, this is where I had to turn my flight controller through 90 degrees. So you set that to 270, and then the firmware sees the flight controller as being pointing in the right direction, which is obviously what you want. Now obviously to test that, make sure that is correct, if you save and reboot there, and then you can go back to setup again and just move your quad, tilt it forwards, tilt it backwards, tilt it to the right, tilt it to the left, and make sure it all corresponds with that picture you're seeing there. If it is, then you know you've got your flight controller orientated correctly on your quad. Back to configuration. Coming down here, these are just some of my choices. I've got accelerometer and barometer support there, which is showing up here as well. Now these might not show up straight away until you go to sensors. And I think if you go to sensors, that might be the other way around. Put the tick in these two boxes and then you should show those two there. Again, you can see if you move your quad, you can see those are working as they should. So go back to configuration, and if we go back down a bit further, just name your quad there, whatever you want to call it. You need to change this from, I think it defaults as ppm. You need to change this to S-bus, which was in there, and this needs to be S-bus as well. Okay, and then save and reboot again. That's all you really need to do in there. Power and battery, we can check that in a minute when I connect up. Failsafe, I think that will show up when the battery is connected. PID tuning, leave that as default to start with. This won't show up anything just at the moment until I connect my battery and my transmitter. So modes, this is my ARM mode I've got there, which is on auxiliary 1 on my transmitter. Adjustments, I don't touch that, not for the moment. We don't need to touch that. GPS, there's no GPS. Motors, again, that won't be affected until we connect the battery. OSD, we'll stay on for that for the moment. We haven't connected OSD, and that's something we're going to look at later when we fit the camera on and everything else. So race transponder, I haven't got that. This is just going to be a, this quad is for me for practice, so learning to fly. Won't be getting serious, I'm sure. LED strip is if you're fitting LEDs. Sensors, as we looked at before, are your gyroscope and your accelerometer. Tethered logging black book, we don't need to worry about that just for the moment. So I'm going to turn on my transmitter and we will then hook up our battery. Okay, so transmitter's on. I'm just going to connect the battery to my quad. Okay, so if we now go back to power and battery, we should see some, configuration. Okay, set up. We got there in the end. So showing battery voltage, current draw, RSSI there. That RSSI is not correct. I haven't sussed out how to get that correct there yet. So if we go to ports, we still have our connection there, configuration. We don't need to touch anything there. So if we now go to our receiver, now on our receiver, this should all correspond to your controls on your transmitter. So obviously throttle, rudder, backwards and forwards, and you can see the little picture there spinning as I go left and right. So then we've got our pitch, again, twizzling it over, and again you can make sure if it's in the right orientation. So just there, make sure that's okay, and then again you've got your pitch backwards and forwards and your roll left to right. Okay, so as I say, that's your rudder or your yaw, whichever you like to call it, and your throttle. So that's showing we've got all our orientation correct. This obviously needs to be correct up here. R-XSR is for me is on channel 7. These are the default settings I set these at. Now I've taken some of these settings from Joshua Bardwell, who's I think probably my favourite YouTube blogger at the moment, as he's got so much information out there. So modes, again I've got this set to so that when I flick this auxiliary into auxiliary 1, that will let me arm it, and then we're ready to go. And also got this on, you know, voice as well. So okay, so that's the settings here. So that is the basic settings in Clean Flight. Again, I'm not an expert on this. Like I say, I've watched lots of Joseph Bardwell's YouTube videos and other people's as well, and I'm just learning this myself. So I hope that has been helpful to you. I'm going to be doing a little bit of a follow on this for the video for setting up the FPV on this for this flight controller, and fitting the camera up as well. I have all the camera already available, and just needs fitting up. And again, like I say, I'll do another short video on how we're going to fit that, how we wire that up to this flight controller, and also how to set the software up for the on-screen display as well. So like I say, this is my first video, well not my first video, but first video to do with quadcopters, and I'm still learning quadcopters and YouTube videos. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it's been of help to you, and I will be back again with another video, not too long, not too far away, I hope. Okay, bye bye.